Billy the Liquor Guy here. The story you're about to hear, Under Too Long, is the story of bombs, drugs, untaxed alcohol, terrorism, and the undercover agents who brought it all down. Thanks for being here. Episode 2. In this episode, the undercover world gets real. From intense training at undercover school to the launch of Operation Spirits, every lesson and move is a step deeper into danger. With new skills and a hand-picked team, I had to prove I was ready. Let's dive back into the story. Chapter 3, UC School. Undercover school was held in an old police academy in Rochester, New York. The program was scheduled to last for 2 weeks and, if all went well, would grant me certification as a New York State registered undercover officer. There were 40 other individuals in line to take the course, and every one of them dressed the part. They each had their own colored version of creased khaki pants, button-down dress shirts, crew cuts, and laptops. I showed up as myself, wind pants, an old t-shirt, an overdue haircut, and a yellow pad and pen. It's fair to say I stood out like a sore thumb. I took a seat towards the back of the room as the instructor walked in without a word. The 5'10", 185 pounds, and approximately 50-year-old, I guess due to his slight gray coloring, instructor stood in front of his desk and surveyed the room. For 5 minutes, he held everyone captive with his gaze. When he stepped away from his desk, walking towards the rows of students, strong anticipation for an introduction or class preparation speech lingered. You could feel the discomfort in the room as he scanned each person. Then he stopped in front of me. "What's your name?" he said, hovering in front of me, his voice deeper than I'd imagined it to be. "Bill," I said. "Bill," he said, stepping back to look me up and down. "Did you think about what you were going to wear this morning, or did you just pick up any old shit up off the floor?" The room filled with laughter. "Actually, sir, I called your mother first to see what she suggested." I smiled. The instructor's face fell flat, but I held my position. As much as I wanted to be here, I wasn't going to play into the bullshit, and I wanted that to be clear. "It's a good thing you did," he said after a few minutes of silence, "because my mama always knows best. Now, I want all of you to turn and look at Bill." 40 bodies twisted around to get a better visual of the sloppy guy in the room. "This is what you should all strive to look like," he said. "This is an example of a good undercover." A smile cracked on the instructor's hard face as he reached out his hand. "Pleased to meet you, Bill. I'm Instructor Sullivan," he said, shaking my hand. "Together we're going to show the rest of these assholes how to enter a room not looking like a cop." All 40 faces looked at me in disgust while Sullivan walked the room, talking about what we learned while we were there. "The first," he said, "is not to get caught. You know how you do that? By dressing like a slob?" A tall asshole with a freshly shaved buzz cut yelled out. "By not dressing like a cop, dipshit," Sullivan said, walking towards him. "You idiots dress like this asshole here, and you're going to get caught or killed." "Bill, can I ask you why you think this schmuck here is not a street person?" Every eye was on me once again. "Well, for starters, I'd look at his shoes," I said. "He's wearing black tactical boots. All law enforcement individuals have those shoes. They're not exactly what you find a street person wearing. The second thing strikes me is his hair. It's styled and freshly shaven, which lets me know looks and stature are important to him. This doesn't work in a criminal world." "How about his outfit?" Sullivan said. "Anything strike you here?" "Other than the fact that he looks wound up, no," I laughed. "So you're saying wound up has a look?" "What I'm saying is that's not what we'd find him wearing on a Sunday. We'd probably find him in a pair of old sweats and his college sweatshirt." "Well, I didn't realize it was dress-down day," Buzzcut sneered. "See? Here I thought working undercover was an automatic dress-down day," I replied. "But that's because I don't want to be pegged for a cop like you will be. I walk into a bar like this, and they're going to dismiss me as a lowlife. They're not going to give me a second look. You walk in, and you'd be lucky if they let you sit at the bar, let alone talk to you." "Bill is a very good point," Sullivan said, stepping away from Buzzboy. "Your first impression can be your last. You have to act, think, and be the undercover you're portraying way before you walk through the door." Before you even meet the guys you're there to take down, you have to be comfortable with yourself and steady in your presence, both mentally and physically. Sullivan paced the room, spewing shit that seemed like second nature to me. As he talked about knowing your surroundings and playing the element, I kept wondering if I was the only person who found this shit easy. As I looked around the room, watching most of my fellow pupils furiously taking notes on their fruit computer pads, I realized I might have stumbled onto my career. The next few days continued as the first, though buzz cut and other officers began arriving in casual attire. Sullivan covered the basics. He discussed dress, demeanor, and automobiles. When you're undercover, the state will supply some of you with cars, he said, his hands in his pockets as he paced the room. The first thing you want to do when you get your vehicle is to study it. Spend an afternoon driving around to test it out. Learn where the windshield wiper button is. Figure out how to play with the radio, how to adjust your seat and your mirrors, and learn which side of your car your gas tank is on. The guy you're trying to get close to will notice if you're driving and you can't figure out how to turn on the wipers or change the radio station. Learning small, simple details such as these can save your life. He also addressed using our backgrounds in a role. Here's where your real life comes into play, he said. If you were an asshole in high school, be that asshole again. If your mama made you scrub your brother's piss off the toilets every week, use that anger. Pulling part of who you really are into who you are portraying can help form a connection between you and your target. A small snicker escaped my lips. Bill, did you say something? Sullivan inquired. No, sorry, I was just thinking about using my past in my role. Well, let's share what you're thinking then. Is there something you think you could use? Well, my agency hired me because of my past. I'm a former bar owner, so working inside the bar seems like an appropriate fit. But what about your background parts? Most of the guys are here because they know about motorcycles, or they're an avid smoker, or their daddy played with guns in the basement. That's a given. That's what makes them a perfect fit for the job. But what I believe you sneered at, and I'm going to use some of my undercover skills here, was in regard to something else. If you thought I was addressing your job-related skills, you would have slept through my lecture or thought about what you had to get done this weekend. Instead, your body reacted to what I said, which lets me know you've got more to say than you're sharing this minute. That's pretty good, I smiled, folding my arms across my chest. I want to hear it, and I'm certain everyone in this room wants to hear it now, too. What's your story, big guy? You have a happy-go-lucky family and decided to become a cop to save the world? Or did you see and experience some rough shit that made you want to go blue? Well, I said, uncrossing my arms and sitting up, I didn't come from a happy-go-lucky family, that's for sure. My family is as fucked up as they come. Dad was an alcoholic, Mom was quiet and took his abuse both on me and particularly on herself. So you became a cop to end domestic abuse? Sullivan interrupted, attempting to move on with his conversation before I cut him off. No, I became a cop because I was conflicted. I grew up surrounded by the mafia and the police. My grandfather was the driver for one of the top mafia guys in my neighborhood, as were some of my cousins and uncles. My uncle, my grandfather's son, was a deputy chief of police. You want to talk about having family dinners with police members and mafia collectors every Sunday? I grew up not knowing if I wanted to be a good guy or a bad guy. I watched how they played off each other, saw the perks and angles from both sides, and battled with a constant desire to be both. Hence my sneer. Being able to play a bad guy and feed that side of myself while doing good. Well, let's just say it seems too good to be true at the moment. Sullivan stared at me for a minute, taking what I said. It was true. I spent every afternoon until the age of 9 going to stores and businesses with my grandfather. When I asked him why I always got a free soda or a piece of candy when we walked in, he would tell me it was out of respect. I was 9 years old. What the hell did I know about respect and a free ice cream? But I idolized it, so much so that I awoke to my father and grandfather having a fight one evening about how my father did not want me riding with my grandfather any longer. You're not invincible, Dad, my father yelled. You've got him with you everywhere. It's not safe. The breakfast table was quiet the next morning. Only my father, who'd been busy reading the paper, spoke. You're no longer allowed to go with Poppy, he said, his face buried behind the black and white ink. I don't want to hear one word about it. That was the first time I knew what it felt like to hate a parent. As the years went on, my grandparents passing on and my father's drinking becoming more extensive, I knew what the feeling of hate truly was. It was the loathing of the sound of his car door when he arrived home, his steps up the stairs, and his fist to my body when it wasn't my mother's turn. It didn't matter that there were 3 children in the house. I, the middle odd-looking son, was the target of his abuse. My height, broad stature, and awkward nature embarrassed him. Today I would have been a father's proud sports prodigy. But then, in a neighborhood filled with Italians who were shorter and slimmer than I was, my look was awkward and a reminder that my mother had Polish blood in her, a fact my Italian father never liked to admit. That right there, the instructor said, bringing me back to the class, is an agency's dream. He understands the look, understands the nature, and has the right background to pull off a major sting. That right there is undercover fantasy. If he plays his cards right, everyone in this room will be hearing some major shit about operations he'll take down. If we don't, then that's one man who truly fucked up the talent the world laid out for him. Now, the rest of you won't be so lucky, but you'll be lucky to study with him now and possibly work with him at some point along your career. Sullivan raised his eyes over the crowd and looked directly at me. I'm going to expect a lot from you, as is everyone in this room, he said. If your shit is real, you won't let us down. I nodded my head, taken aback by the sudden turn of conversation. It was the first time anyone in my life addressed my skills and my background in a positive light. The final days of school were spent on field assignments. Outside the classroom, we took driving classes, learned speed tactics, how to remain discreet during a pursuit, studied with former undercovers, and my favorite, shadowing detectives on a current operation. By the time I was introduced to my 2 detectives, Barrett and Romero, I was practically foaming at the mouth. The excitement to be on the field again, shadowing 2 prominent detectives on an active case, made me feel alive. Barrett and Romero were by the book. They both had firm handshakes, broad smiles, and wore the same black leather gloves. Even their stature was about the same, with Barrett holding a slight edge up. After our brief introductions, I swiftly followed them to their patrol car, where Barrett took the lead in the driver's seat. Romero opened the back door, gesturing for me to slide in before settling into the front. Sullivan had made it clear that we were there to observe and listen. He discouraged us from attempting to aid in the detectives' work unless we were invited, and I respected that. After all, while I knew these guys were making a few extra bucks escorting wannabes around, at the end of the day, they still had a job to do. And if I were in their seat, the last thing I would want is some 2-bit ride-along offering advice on my case. Knowing my place, I nestled into the hardback seat and listened as Romero explained their case in detail. An illegal manufacturing plant responsible for producing tobacco had been discovered 2 miles off the interstate. The plant, which had been home to several canning and bottling operations in the past, had been linked to a few illnesses and 1 death as a result of mixed material found in faux cigarettes they were distributing. The detectives had 1 informant ready to testify, but needed something to stronger ensure they went down for the crime. They'd receive word that the next shipment of cigarettes would be coming from the warehouse within 2 days. They had around-the-clock surveillance on the joint and were just waiting to apprehend the truck as it hit the road. An electrified shiver spread through my body. Of all the cases and detectives to work with, I'd struck undercover gold. I knew this shit like the back of my hand. Barrett and Romero were fun to work with. They made me feel comfortable, asked about my past, and freely swapped stories from the battlefield. Their welcoming nature put me at ease, and while they didn't ask me for advice or my opinion, they never halted my questions. I picked their brains, searching for different tactics. When they said something that was informative, I wrote it down. When they said something that I knew wouldn't work for me, I wrote it down. Though the detectives did things by the book, they were smart in their approach and tactics. I learned about their 5-year history together, the cases they cracked, and how they cracked them. The whole gig was going along swimmingly until the final night. With 2 days of minimal activity coming from the warehouse, Barrett and Romero declared this night the one. For 2 hours, I sat in the back seat of the cold car, waiting for something to happen. The detectives reported activity as it went down. Light in the rear of the warehouse went on. An unknown van parked beside the loading dock. 3 large men approached the warehouse. Lights went out. "What the hell do you suppose they're doing?" Barrett questioned. "Making sure no one sees what's going on, should someone be watching," Romero stated. Barrett pulled out his binoculars and tried to get a better view. The warehouse, which was secreted behind a 10-foot-tall electric fence, posed multiple blind spots, and the 14-degree temperature kept causing the front window of our car to ice over. An hour into the wait, Barrett caught something. The van, which was driving without any lights, pulled away from the loading dock. The eagerness I felt to sit back and observe suddenly slid down my body and landed in a puddle on the floor. As the van made its way to the gate, I listened to Barrett and Romero's plan. We were to follow the van, report where it went, and then rush in and seize the vehicle with their secured warrant in hand. "I've got a better idea," I said, pulling off my jacket. "Let me get in the truck with the driver and see what I could find out." The detectives looked at me if I'd lost my mind. "And how does that work?" Barrett asked. "You just going to walk up and ask to take a look around?" Romero laughed. "Why not?" I said, pulling off my shoes. "This crazy newbie thinks he can just hop into the passenger seat while a criminal is hauling thousands of dollars of illegal products and have a chat." Barrett laughed. "That's not how this works, guy. Just sit back and take your notes like you're supposed to. Right now, this is a real police business, not a shadow operation." "You doubt me," I stated, removing my socks. The van approached the gate. "Anyone ever tell you you're an idiot?" Romero joked. "All my life," I laughed, removing my shirt and tossing it into the front seat. Confused, Romero turned around, holding my shirt by the tip of his fingers as if it were diseased. "What the fuck are you doing?" Barrett now joined Romero, their jaws hanging, as I sat there in my boxers. "Gentlemen," I smiled, "you owe me a hot coffee if this shit works." Before they could say anything, I bolted from the car and started running. The snow stung the bottom of my feet, but my adrenaline and the hollering from the detectives behind me pushed me through each layer of rigid snow I ran over. The secured gates opened, and the van began to drive out, his highlights still off. I sprinted into the road, just 4 feet ahead of him, flailing my arms and yelling. I prayed he noticed me. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot. The van took notice, stopped, and turned on his lights. "What the fuck are you doing, asshole?" the driver yelled, his head sticking out the driver's side window. He didn't sport a trucker's hat like I imagined he would. "Get the fuck out of the road." I stepped closer to the van, pretending to hold my chest as if I were freezing. "Please help me out, man. I'm fucking frozen out here. I need a ride." "You got no clothes on, idiot," he yelled. Man, I got caught with my buddy's girlfriend. He came home early, and I had to jump out the window. I've been running, hoping to find someone. My feet are in serious pain. The driver tilted his head out the window, watching as I jostled from one foot to the next. "Please, man, can you give me a few minutes to warm up in your ride?" "Women always get you in this much trouble?" the driver asked. "Only about every other week," I responded, rubbing my arms. "Please, man, I swear I'm a decent human being, just a bit caught up with the ladies is all. Can you spare a ride?" The driver hesitated. For a minute, I thought he might say no, and that I'd be in some real shit when I arrived back at the detective's car. Hell, if the guy said no, I just fucked up the case, let alone any chance I had of graduating and becoming an undercover. Then, like a ray of sunshine, the driver said those magical words that erased the burden from my chest. "Get in." I ran my ass around the van and pulled myself inside as fast as I could. As cold as it was outside, my adrenaline was pumping so hard that I was actually sweating. I wiped the sweat from my brow so I could carry on with my frozen act. "You turn out to be a crazy motherfucker, and I'll leave your cold ass in the woods. You hear me?" the driver said as I sat down. "Man, you can do whatever you like," I said, throwing my hands in front of the heater. "I'm just grateful you saved my ass. If I didn't freeze to death, I'd probably be hunted and killed by my buddy any time now." "You mess with this girl?" the driver inquired, shaking his head. "That's messed up. I should probably do your buddy a favor and leave you here for him to find." "You wouldn't say that if you saw the girl," I grinned, rubbing my hands for warmth. He should have known better anyway. Girls like her aren't set to stay home and play wife for long. Girls like her get bored. I studied the driver as I spoke. He was missing a tooth on his right side and had a small birthmark under his eye that resembled the state of Texas. "How close are you two?" he asked. "Close enough to have taken time in the slammer together." "What jail you been in?" Clinton Correctional, 2 years. Forgery. Fuck me. I was there too. What year? 1990 to 1992. You were just a baby then. We weren't in together. 98, 99 smuggling. Shit, you don't like you could smuggle my mother. What they get you on? Robbing baby formula? The driver laughed. I ain't as young as you think, he smirked. I've been pulling tricks since I was 16. Mom or dad issues? I joked, pulling my chest up to the heater. You got a blanket or something in here? Dad, he left, took the money. I had to support my mom and my 3 brothers. Stealing became second nature. Check behind your seat there. Might be a sweatshirt. I turned my body around, pretending to be stiff from the cold, and scanned the back of the open van. It was loaded from floor to ceiling with cigarettes. Wow, I called out. You fucking rob a smoke shop? No, the driver laughed, reaching behind my seat, pulling out the sweatshirt I was supposed to be seeking. Just transporting some goods for a friend. Must be a really good friend, I said, draping the sweatshirt across my chest. Based on the driver's medium frame, I didn't dare embarrass myself trying to put it on. You allowed to smoke any of them? Not these ones. They're for transport. But I do have my own stash that he hooks me up with. Shit, I said, turning my body to look at the amount of cigarettes again. Why don't you just drive off and fucking sell them for a shit ton of money? I know people who would be interested. No fucking way, he stated. This job is too good to mess with. Ain't no money your guys can give me that compares to the shit I get paid. Best gig of my career. How much money are we talking about? 10,000 a haul. 10,000 a haul, I spat, whipping my body around to face his. You make 10,000 for transporting cigarettes. What's inside, gold? No, they ain't real cigarettes per se. They're manufactured, designed to look like the real shit. They fill them with a bunch of crap. Law says it's illegal, but what's the difference between the other shit they let people inhale? Fucking tobacco ain't no better, and it sure as hell ain't pure. They've been lacing that shit with pesticides and wood chips and all kinds of crap to break down their cost. Law just wants their cut. $10,000, I repeated. Twice a month. Listen, where are you going anyway? I'm on a schedule here. I'm going anywhere you are, I shrugged. Drop me when you're ready. I just need to get out of here quickly, if you know what I mean. Yeah, killer boyfriend on the loose, I got it. The driver headed straight past the detectives, none the wiser. You're telling me you make $20,000 a month, I questioned, startled at what he was taking in. Maybe choosing a good way out was a bad decision after all. That's $240,000 a year. Yep, and your friends can't touch that shit. Knowing and make me waver from what this company can offer me. I sat silent for a minute, calculating the numbers. You thinking about taking my rig now? I'm thinking about what that money could do for my family and wondering how I can get a job like this. Well, running out in the snow with no clothes on is a start. Shows that you're one crazy motherfucker. You take risks and you're not scared of little danger. All my life, I said. The driver and I began sharing dangerous stories from our past. Deep down, I couldn't help but think this story was already making the top of my list. Let me speak to your boss, I said after a few minutes. I bet I can sway him to take me on board. Hell, maybe we can even double your load and be partners. That is, if he has more material to sell. Oh, he's got it all right. But what makes you think I want your naked ass in my van all the time? I'm a fun guy. And unless you have a pretty lady you're trying to keep all to yourself, I'm fairly harmless. So, you're admitting you're a poor judge of character when it comes to women. Just one, and she's history now. I got what I wanted. You're a sick son of a bitch, all right, the driver laughed, his Texas birthmark wrinkling into his skin. Come on, man. Let me talk to him. I bet I can persuade him. I need my life to turn around. Ain't nothing good waiting back home for me now anyway. The driver sighed, looking straight ahead into the snow. I've got a long drive, buddy. You will need to pick a spot I can drop you at. I told you, I'm going wherever you're going. I'm with you now. I want a job. Guy, I'm headed 2 hours out. I ain't coming back this way for another 2 weeks. I can't get you home. Fuck home, I said, sitting back in the seat. This is my new home. You are one insistent asshole, the driver said, smiling. You think you really want this life? I ain't got nothing else, I said. Plus, I'm tapped out of new ladies to try. Well, you better buckle up then, he sighed. Once you're in, you're in. I think it's fair to say I already am. After all, I know what you're hauling, and I know about your intent to sell it, he smirked. So, we're both on each other. Help me get a piece of the pie, and I'll forever be indebted to you. First thing for sure, you can't show up naked, the driver said, looking at me. They'll toss you right on the street. You got any money? I pulled out my wallet with a big smile. I wasn't stupid enough to leave the important shit behind. The only shop that was open was a trucker stop 10 miles up the road. I purchased a pair of shower sandals, a trucker hat, a sweatshirt that read, I do it for the haul, a pair of oversized sweatpants, which I'd reckon I'd still make use of after this night, and a turkey sandwich. By the time we pulled in the driver's delivery spot, I knew the names of everyone in charge, their set locations, where they shipped from, where their routes were, and even the trucker's father's name, Chip. Chip the Dip, he called him. I'd like to say I had the opportunity to meet them and obtain an interview, but the detectives had been too concerned. Not sure if my undercover had been blown or what was going on inside the van, but they called in a countrywide backup. As soon as Bud, the driver who finally introduced himself after the first hour, pulled through the gates of an undisclosed garage, blue and red lights sprang from the darkness, lighting up the van like it was the 4th of July. Sirens flared and officers asked us to slowly step out of the vehicle on the loudspeaker. For a second, the activity caught me off guard and my heart leapt into my throat. Fuck, the driver screamed. Fuck, fuck. Bud panicked, quickly turned his head left and right, searching for a way out. Pull the fuck over, I urged him. No fucking way, he yelled. There has to be a way out of here. You're surrounded, I said. Give up, man. Surrender, so they'll take it easy on you. I can't, he said, gripping the wheel. I can't let them get to me. Bud, offer up your people. You'll be out tomorrow. It's easy, man. I can't do that, he cried. I can't rat them out. You already did, I said flatly. What the fuck do you mean? Bud said, wide-eyed. Huh? Tell me what the fuck you mean. I mean, my name is not Bob. I'm an officer with the PATB, and you're under arrest for smuggling illegal cigarettes throughout the state. Bud's Texas birthmark dropped like a Confederate flag. You're a cop? This whole time? Sorry, man. It was the only way we could crack the case, I said gently. The whole girlfriend and being naked in the snow, you made that all up? I did, I said, holding my gaze. Now stop the truck and surrender. Don't make it harder. They already know what you have. I had a wire in my pocket for the whole time. A wire, the driver whined, sounded like my son at 4 years old. Fuck. I did enjoy our time together. For what it's worth, and $240,000 a year, I can't say I wouldn't have thought about taking the gig myself. That's a life changer. Bud pulled the truck to a stop and handed me the keys. Together we raised our hands in surrender and stepped out of the truck. We were seized within seconds. Both of us pulled apart and dragged to separate vehicles. Are you Billy? An officer to my right questioned. Barrett could be heard broadcasting my description over the radio. I am, I said, taking in the amount of police and officers that were swarming the warehouse and surrounding area. Great job, Billy, the officer said, releasing my arm and leading me to the safety of his car. You just cracked down an operation that we've been trying to break through for months. I slid into the passenger seat of his car and continued to watch as the commotion outside gained momentum. It was like a scene out of the Wild West. I kept waiting for an officer to come running up to my window, waving a scalping instrument and chanting. Your detectives are a little sore with you, but the rest of us are in awe, the officer said as he got into the driver's seat. That's some crazy shit you pulled out there. You got a pen and paper, I inquired. I need to write this shit down before I forget. Anything you need, Bud, he said, pulling a standard notepad from his front pocket. The name Bud sent shivers down my spine. Poor guy. He was about to face a significant amount of jail time if he chose to protect his boss. Since my imaginary recording device, which Bud believed lay inside a pocket I didn't exist, I immediately wrote down everything Bud told me. Barrett and Romero's shadow lingered outside the passenger window as I wrote, so I took my time. I knew coffee was off the table. I graduated with flying colors the following week and received my official undercover certification with Stanton present. Bill, Sullivan said, shaking my hand for the last time, I've got some high hopes for you. I want to see you deliver on them, you hear? Loud and clear, Mr. Sullivan. Sullivan slapped me on the back and told me to stay safe. Nah, I said, smiling. I plan to play it anything but safe. I drove home with my certificate buckled into the passenger seat. After all these years, I had something I could be proud of and someone who saw what I'd seen in myself. As I walked around my backyard picking up dog shit the kids and my wife had left accumulating while I'd been gone, I couldn't help but feel anything other than pride. Chapter 4, Op Spirits. Operation Spirits, Stanton said as I sat in his office. That's what we're going under. I've set up a new team for you. Some guys you know, others you'll get to know quickly. I turned to face a team of 4 guys, all sitting around Stanton's table. Tony was to be my new partner. He was an instrumental investigator within the Albany unit. He was known for his business sense, was fluent in Spanish and Italian, and was good-looking and well-liked by everyone, including me. The operation will need a smart businessman. Tony will be your go-to. He will handle the sales, arrangements, and meetings. He's been prepped and is knowledgeable on liquor prices, quality, and brand names. Once you successfully make your pitch, Tony will step in to handle the money and sales transactions. Jeff, also known as the Shoe, was to be our loader and surveillance assistant. Jeff is rumored to be able to drive anything, anywhere. Stanton smiled. Unfortunately, those rumors will more than likely be put to test should you boys do what we're expecting on this operation. Jeff had a relaxed, calm demeanor that I picked up right away. You two are also the biggest guys on the team, so you'll be expected to load a lot of the liquor distribution once you get where I want you to be. McNally was to be the leader of our unit. As our chief of operations, he was to travel with us should we need to expand from our routed vicinity. I've worked with McNally for years, so I can assure you that he is the best guy for the job, Stanton said. He is not there to step on your toes, as I believe you're going to need a bit of creative freedom to get the job done. He's there to guide you, keep you out of harm's way, and will be responsible for reporting back to me and handling the red tape. I'd met McNally once prior. He seemed stable and confident, not at all like a booth or post. Then there was Docs, Tony's partner from the Albany office. I sensed his arrogance from across the room. He was a pretty boy and thought highly of himself. Billy, you're going to love Docs. He's another pain in the ass, so you should get along. I nodded my head and turned back to Stan. Now that we're all pleasantly introduced, let's get down to the formalities. As of this afternoon, you 5 are all part of Operation Spirits. You will work together as a unit, Stanton said. Your success will depend on one another, so if you fail, it's on everyone's shoulders. Operation Spirits was designed to uncover untaxed liquor sales happening around the southern tier of New York. A recent 40% drop in revenue had created a buzz within the ivory tower, something I was all too aware of. As an agent for the Petroleum, Alcohol, Tobacco Bureau, I'd spent the past 8 years investigating the distribution of untaxed cigarettes smuggled through Canada and distributed throughout the Native American reservation. It might sound like small at first, but for those unaware of the true nature of smuggling ring, let me explain. In 1700, New York State made a land agreement with the Native Americans, granting them some of the land they'd been diligently pursuing. The land was split across the state in what we know as the 6 nations: the Cayuga, Kanien'ka, Mohawks, Kanikiaka, Oneidas, Anyataka, Oneidas, Ondagi, Seneca, Onondaga, and Tuscarora, Scori. With these land claims came the loss of the state's jurisdiction on the reservation, which sounds just, until part of that unit goes rogue and wants more. For the Native Americans up near Messina, New York, that's something regarded one of the few unpatrolled borders of Canada. Under the Jay Treaty, which passed in 1794, the Native Americans were legally permitted to pass freely along St. Lawrence River and the 45th parallel. Without New York State Police or patrol borders allowed on the reservation, the border became prime opportunity for criminals looking for a way in, and by the 1980s, that opportunity was happily filling the pockets of smuggling, bringing anything and everyone into the United States. Think all cocaine routes were coming in through Mexico? Try again. During this time, the government was sinking an alarming rate of taxpayer money into uncovering how all the drugs, guns, and various illegal contraband were coming in. Yet, when the United States government finally discovered that the missing link had been under its nose the whole time, they made sure the public didn't catch wind of it. Why? because alarming the country that we'd basically given a group of individuals a legal contract to smuggle anything they wanted to in our country, and we technically couldn't do jack about it. Wouldn't make for a very good political agenda, now would it? In hopes of quietly resolving the problem, New York State developed a task force that operated under the law known as the TIA, a class action lawsuit from New York State versus Milham Eltia brothers. The United States Supreme Court had brought forth an injunction against the Native Americans, which gave them the right to purchase untaxed cigarettes for the people on their reservation. Seems like an easy case closed situation, yet even with the law in hand, the Native Americans continued to receive 10,000 cases of cigarettes a week. With a ballpark of 2,500 people living on one reservation, the number seemed ambiguous. Even if the reservation sold 10 cartons of cigarettes to each person, which would have to include children, they still wouldn't make a dent in the sales. Therefore, it became the task force job to spearhead finding out what was happening with all of the remaining untaxed cigarettes. Untaxed cigarettes might sound minimal to the untrained ear, but untaxed items create a large pay cut for New York State. And since the state needed money to repair and refund the loss it had created, our agency was placed on board. The PATB had been a fairly quiet unit until then, but with Director Shep on the lead and New York State willing to turn a blind eye in order to repair its ego, the PATB rose to an entirely new level, and boy, was it heated. Over the course of 7 years, our task force worked with premium multi-unit team, which include the Drug Task Force and ICE, who worked to uncover illegal immigration traffic. We were responsible for shutting down several motor fuel operations, untaxed cigarette rings, untagged tractor trailers, and ending hundreds of thousands of dollars in illegal sales. To say we were unstoppable would have been right on, until Internal Affairs found fault with Shep and teamed up with Chief Booth to take us down. We're targeting the liquor stores, Stanton proclaimed, to my surprise. Billy's job is to see what stores are open to purchasing untaxed liquor. Once we get a go-ahead, I want Jeff and Docs to begin a full surveillance and background into the store and the owner. See what you can find. The deeper we can get into these sales, the more likely we are to connect with distributors that are supplying the untaxed liquor out there. I wasn't exactly sold on the liquor store's concept, but I was new and eager to start. Our first 2 months produced minuscule results. Stanton was frustrated, to say the least. Time after time, the doors closed in my face. I'd walk in, introduce myself as Billy, a former bar owner who'd been dealing in untaxed liquor since I left the business, here to let them know about a sweet deal I had. However, if I sold more than 3 bottles to the less than leery customers, it was a miracle. They don't want to work with someone they don't know, I pleaded to Stanton. We have to try a different angle. So find the angle, he said, leaving my team and me stumped. I changed my approach, reworded my scheme, and sat for hours with my team discussing how we could change our tactics. During the 7th week, with barely enough cases to floss our teeth, I took a shot on a large liquor chain, per Doc's advice. We've tried everything else, he said. Leave it to my team to agree with this idiot. I wasn't in the store for 10 minutes before the sheriff's department ran into the store, cuffing me and Tony and confiscating our van full of liquor. Those poor guys actually believed they had landed a big case. It wasn't until we reached the station that Jeff and Dix explained who we were. You're undercover, the sheriff said. I am, sir, I replied. Well, why the fuck didn't you tell me in the first place? He said, angrily unlocking the handcuffs, which were set a little too tight around my wrist. I was trying to protect my cover, sir. The sheriff and his crew released Tony and me and our van without so much as a good luck. But who could blame them? If I walked into a liquor store and got my hands on a huge lead, only to watch it instantly dissolve, I would have been pissed too. I went home from the arrest determined to convince Stan that the liquor stores were not the answer. To my surprise, he didn't disagree. When I began my career, I was fortunate to have a boss that allowed me to trust my judgments and run with them. It was that freedom that I hold accountable for my success. If I'd been limited and stifled, I would have burned out and stayed at the level for God knows how long. That boss showed me that freedom and a supportive unit was the key to making things happen. Now I am going to give that to you. You're going to give me the key to freedom? I questioned, somewhat confused about where he was going. If you'd like it, Stan said. Quiet filled the line. I wasn't sure what to say or how to decipher what the fuck he was talking about. Billy, he finally interjected, I don't think you've ever felt trusted in your life. You're someone people always watch. They're cautious of you because of your unconventional ways in the system. I think given the freedom to take this operation in your own hands, you'll trust yourself. So if you want to go after the bars, I want you to give it a shot. Just let me know what you need. Are you fucking with me? I laughed into the phone. No fucking on this end, just a belief and a promise that you can do better if you try it your way. Do try and report back. Stan hung up the line. That air filtered through my brain. He trusted me. He was letting me do what I asked. Those two ideas were as confusing as they were liberating. After a few minutes, I picked up the phone and called Tony. Get ready. We're about to go bar hopping. Tony arrived on site with a smile as wide as a clown. You ready to make history? I said, sliding into the passenger seat. Been ready for years, he said, putting the van into drive. Where are we headed? To the first bar we see. We didn't sell to the first bar we stopped at. It was a second try that worked. The bar we made our first sale to was old and run by an Italian guy named Mario. No joke. Mario was close to 250 pounds. I immediately branded him the name Double Wide. Mario stepped out from a back room with an unlit cigar in his mouth. His stomach hung over so far his pants that you couldn't tell me where they began and where they ended. I took a deep breath and tried to remain as calm as I could. Talk to him like he's your uncle, I told myself. You know this guy. He could be any one of your family members. Mario squinted as he approached me, his forehead frowning into the fat between his eyes. I smiled and stuck out my hand like we're old pals. I've got something for you, I leaned forward in a soft voice. I think you'll be interested. What the fuck do you know what I'll be interested in? He sneered, the cigar between his teeth. A friend of a friend referred me to you, said you're always open to new business deals, said you were smarter than shit when it came to fresh opportunities. What the fuck opportunity is that? He questioned. How about a shit ton of untaxed liquor? That sound like an opportunity for you? Mario stood still for a minute, taking his cigar and staring at me. I held my pose like I could give two shits if he believed me or not. It worked. Why the fuck would you think I would be interested in untaxed liquor? Because the word on the street is you're a smart businessman. Mario puffed on his cigar, thinking. Listen, I've got a round of clients that I have to go to today. If you're not interested, that's fine. But I think you should take a look at what I have before I leave. From the way people speak about you, I can't help but assume you'd be upset if you let this opportunity go by without exploring it. What type of liquor are you talking about? He asked. Any type you want. Is this watered down shit I'm going to buy and find out you diluted half the bottle? You can check the seals all yourself. They're all 100% authentic and on hand. You have them here, he questioned. Out back in my van, I said, smiling at him. It's ready and waiting for you to come and have a look. Bobby, Mario called someone in the back. I need you to come and check a delivery with me. Man here says he has something. Let's see if he's bluffing. Another fat man, about half this guy's age, walked from the back of the bar, looking me up and down. There was a large brown stain on his white t-shirt. I couldn't tell if it was recent or pre-existing. Who the fuck is this? He asked. Billy. Billy the liquor guy, I said, extending my hand. Billy the liquor guy is something I want you to see if it's legit. Fuck do we know about this guy? Stainboy said, ignoring my hand. Nothing. That's why you're here, Mario said, squinting at him. Go see what he has. I followed Mario and his sidekick through the kitchen and out the side door. I saw Tony's eyes widen as he spotted us. Open it up, I said, knocking on the back door. Tony pulled open the doors from the inside and revealed what would be considered Disneyland to anyone in the bar industry. Tony turned on an overhead light, which Stanton had installed along with a camera, and revealed our treasure of liquor. Mario's mouth dropped. Gentlemen, this is Tony. He's my business partner and financial guru, I said. Nice to meet you, gentlemen, Tony smiled with a little salute. You want to see anything? Please let me know. Financial guru, Stainboy mocked. He folded his arms across his chest in defiance. Yeah, he can break down the cost of every bottle and order here, and he can show you how much you'll be saving should you buy with us. He knows more about figures than I do, hence the guru. So what's your job then, if he's handling all the money? Mario grunted. To let smart business individuals like yourself know that we exist. I pulled a bottle of Patron from the rack closest to me and let Mario check the label, the seal, and everything in between. This isn't a gag, I said. There's no switch fix, no gimmick. This is straight up liquor sold without the additional sales price tag. Mario turned the bottle over, letting a golden liquid inside the slush around. Tony, how much would this gentleman save on a case of Patron? I asked while Mario passed the bottle to his partner to study. $139.68 to be exact, Tony said, not missing a beat. Mario and Bobby looked surprised. See why he's my financial guru? I said. He can do more, you know. Ask him about your vodka of choice. Keto One, Mario said, $145. We can do this all day if you like. It's kind of a fun game when you get into it. Mario turned to Bobby looking for an answer. Bobby looked back at the van and then at Mario. It's your call, Bobby, Mario said. Seems like a pretty good situation if it's true. I'm pretty sure these aren't imaginary bottles you're seeing, I laughed. You're seeing the deal with your own eyes. It's your choice if you take it or leave it. Mario excused himself and pulled Bobby to the side. I didn't dare look at Tony. I was afraid my eyes might give it all away. Instead, I stood there, opening and closing my hands to quiet my shaking. Okay, here's what we're going to do, Mario said. I'm going to take some bottles today. If the price works out and all seems legit, I'll order some more. How often are you guys in town? We hit our customers weekly, I responded. Largest orders come first. Once we figure out our schedule, based on demand, we'll give you a heads up on when we'll be back. Mario stood there, taking in the bottles once again. 1 case of Patron, kettle, and a case of Speed Rack. Tony put together his invoice on a 3-tiered pad so we could keep track of sales as much as they could while I gathered his order. I've got cash inside, Mario nodded to me. Bobby will have it ready for you once all is delivered. I expected Bobby to help me carry in the cases, but there I was loading up liquor and hauling it in while he stood back like a lazy ass, watching me work. This would be my first insight into my new role in the world of bad guys. I would have to play the peon. The drive to the next bar was a fucking scene. Tony and I were like 2 little kids on Christmas morning. We couldn't believe what we just done. We were full of gusto and ready to take on bar after bar, and that's exactly what we did. During the next 5 hours, we secured 4 more bars back to back. We set up weekly follow-up and drove back to the office with 1 speed rack and 2 bottles of peppermint schnapps remaining. If Tony and I were the type for the sweet shit, I believe we would have walked into the office and cracked open a bottle to celebrate. Instead, we went back, filled out mounds of paperwork, and called Stanton. We need more supplies, I said. We're tapped out.
Surviving the training was one thing. Staying alive in the field was another. With Operation Spirits underway, the stakes were higher than ever, and every decision could be my last. But there was no turning back now. Keep listening. Things are about to get even more dangerous.